Coming to you from Malta, an island country 50 miles south of Sicily, about 200 miles north of Libya, northeast of Tunisia, North Africa. It's up for grabs if the cute little Maltese dog originates from here, but for the sake of this vlog, let's just say it does. Interestingly, Pirates of the Caribbean, Popeye, Gladiator, Troy, Game of Thrones have all been filmed here. Anyway, why am I here? I'm here for a speaking tour where I'll be talking about business, but we're officially past the halfway point of the 48 Laws of Power. Law 25, recreate yourself. Do not accept the roles that society foists on you. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced and your character will seem larger than life. The examples that Greene uses for this law are somewhat weak to me, but the real issue is this. He didn't title this law correctly. It should have been something like, do and say what people want to see and hear from you. But before I get into that, let me give the one example that I think correctly presents this law. It's the story of Aurore Dupont Dudevant, who was famously known as George Sand. In 1831, this young woman had no desire to live the typical life of a lady her age. She aspired to be a writer, so in order to do that, she left her husband and family out in the province and moved to Paris. The problem is that no female ever made money off of writing at that time. They either made it through marriage or by prostitution. And pretty extreme choices there. So what did she do? Dudevant radically recreated herself by playing the role of a man. In 1832, her first novel, Indiana, was accepted and published under a pseudonym, George Sand. Naturally, everyone thought this new fantastic writer was a man. Interestingly, before this all, Dudevant liked wearing men's clothes because she found men's clothing to be more comfortable. So out in the public, she completely reinvented herself by looking like a man, from coats to hats to boots to smoking cigars. The new look was mesmerizing to people. What's funny is that she was actually accepted into the elite group of male artists of that time, drinking and smoking with them, and even had affairs with some of the most celebrated European artists like the famous composer Chopin. She knew that the character of George Sand could grow old to people, so she continuously recreated herself by getting involved in politics, student rebellions, and other social upheavals. Greene says that Dudevant didn't care to be a man, but just played one so that the masses could eat it up. Her true intention was to have control over her own life. Greene says the following, which caught my attention because we're in an era where everyone says to be yourself. Greene writes, she did not attain her power, however, by being herself. Instead, she created a persona that she could constantly adapt to her own desires, a persona that attracted attention and gave her presence. As you can see, Dudevant lived the life her way because she knew how to play the game. Greene hypothesizes that the idea of self-creation was actually derived from art. He says that it may have first been discovered in 1656 in Velázquez's painting Las Meninas. Greene states the artist appears at the left of the canvas, standing before a painting that he's in the process of creating, but that has its back to us. We cannot see it. Besides him stands a princess, her attendants, and a man of her court. They're all watching him work. The people posing for the painting are not directly visible, but we can see them in tiny reflections in a mirror on the back wall, the King and Queen of Spain, who must be sitting somewhere in the foreground outside the picture. The painting represents a dramatic change in the dynamics of power and the ability to determine one's own position in society. For Velázquez, the artist is far more prominently positioned than the King and Queen. In a sense, he's more powerful than they are since he's clearly the one controlling the image. Their image. Velázquez no longer saw himself as the slavish, dependent artist. He had remade himself into a man of power. So to go back to my initial point, I think Greene's examples were sort of weak as an illustration of this law because this law I felt was labeled incorrectly. It could have been called Law 25. Learn how to act so you can please people and get your way. All of his examples demonstrate that. From Caesar to Franklin D. Roosevelt to Abraham Lincoln, they weren't really about recreating themselves, but more about other things like changing the atmosphere through direct contrast with their predecessors like FDR, using photographs of oneself to make himself popular like Lincoln, and being an over-the-top actor in every facet of life like Julius Caesar. What Greene is really trying to say with this law is, be a chameleon. Basically, protect yourself by being fake. Always put on an act. Learn how to be an actor. Be flexible, protean, versatile, whatever it takes to get what you want. So that's why the title of this rule confuses me. As he says at the end of this law, quote, Know how to be all things to all men. How do you do that? By being fake. So how does that translate into recreating yourself? I think he actually means don't be yourself. Also, at times, I don't feel that his examples intentionally set out to do the things that Greene writes about. More than halfway through the laws, I sense more of an accidental stumbling upon, or that Greene is just piecing stories and outcomes together through coincidental historical events to prove his laws. I'm not negating the effectiveness of these numbered tactics, but I don't think all the figures used in these anecdotes were aiming, plotting, and planning to cleverly influence people, except for some like George Sand, who really intended this kind of manipulation because her gender was a liability and a hindrance in her day. But I think some celebrities and power mongers today read this book and take the laws as scripture, reading and intentionally putting them to work. Greene asserts that there's no real reversal to this law, but the often cited mantra of today could be one, which is just be yourself. But I'll show you how being yourself is not what everyone does, because it can actually hurt you. What Greene is saying with this law, inappropriately titled Recreate Yourself, because it should be something like give people what they want, whether it's cake, circus, drama, or theater, or just simple etiquette and protocol. What I'm saying is that Greene is saying we all act whether we want to or not. From work to being around friends to meeting new people, we act. We're not our true selves, because stating what we really think of her dress or what we really think about his new apartment could land us in some hot water. Being the true you has some true acting. So what this law is really saying is to act good in contrast to poorly, so you can get the things you want in life, whether it's that promotion, acceptance into your dream university, or just getting a refund from an upset cashier. By acting good, things will go your way because you're saying and doing what people want to hear and see done. A saying that comes to mind is, don't judge a book by its cover, but we do it all the time. Like the story of the guy who walks into a store poorly dressed, then no one helps him, but when he comes back the following day, dressed up, all the salespeople flock to him. We use expressions like this all the time. Don't judge a book by its cover, but actually go against them frequently. Another saying that comes to my mind about this law is, if you can't beat them, join them. What I'm saying is, for example, let's take the concept of dressing the part. You really want to wear shorts and a tank top because to you it's the pinnacle of comfortability, especially when you're working, but standard workplace attire dictates otherwise. You can't dress like that at work, telling off-color jokes and gossiping about the boss's spouse because that's the true you. I'm just trying to be real. Well, being the real you can be real disastrous at times. Reminds me of that Dave Chappelle skit of when keeping it real goes wrong. So being this true and authentic you that people always talk about is not what people really do. It just sounds nice. So this is what Greene is talking about. We all act whether we like it or not, so you might as well be a good actor. Well, that's all I have for Law 25, incorrectly titled Recreate Yourself. And when you do, according to Greene, you're able to attain some power. Signing out from the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, here in Malta, take care and be awesome. Peace.